Okay.
Hello and welcome to this episode of Speak. Myself and Elisa are joined by the awesome Andrea Simon. And so, as per usual, we'll hand over to Andrea to do a little bit of an intro into herself. And Andrea, let us know what you want to talk about in the Speak seat.
Yeah, thanks, ladies. Hi, my name's Andrea Simon, and I have worked in the wonderful world of health and safety for 36 years. Um,
Amazing.
I actually have just kept it a little bit quiet that I've done this. I don't know why. I've been a little bit invisible, but I feel like I've got a story to tell. I started at 16 as an apprentice in 1988, and that's when really health and safety apprentices sort of really didn't have anything, it wasn't out there. And I think I was actually chosen because I'm a bit of a white kid. I was like, why are you doing that? Why, what's going on? And they've probably gone, she's annoying, put her with health and safety. So there you go. I started in banking, so very strange, and I've worked my way through to the classy dizzy heights of civil engineering.
Right.
I've worked in construction, civil engineering for probably about, or design engineering, construction for just short 20 or just over 20 years. Um, and I've seen lots and lots of challenges. I've had the experience of working across the world. So yeah, I've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I guess, the conversation that I wanted to bring to you ladies is probably quite controversial, but I think it probably fits in with some of the things that are coming out from IOSH about, do we think that there is a glass ceiling in the health and safety profession?
Oh, it's a juicy one. Where'd the question come from? Where's that built from?
So, Crystal, I started off in the profession as a good old 16-year-old, and I was a young 16. My birthday is the end of the month, end of July. I started within 2 weeks at the beginning of August. So I was probably a very young 16-year-old, and I just saw working in the health and safety department with men. And I'm gonna put it out there, my first manager was called Dennis. And this guy, God bless his soul, he's probably passed away now. He was older than my parents, and I used to just walk around and go, "What? Why is everybody wrong? Why are you just so?" I always went, "Be less Dennis, be less Dennis." In my
Oh, Jess.
We're going to
so,
have to add somebody to the pile. Usually it's Bob that gets it wrong when it's Dennis that's a terrible leader. So
and
be
you know
leader.
what? And that's been my mantra pretty much for my 30 odd years.
Mm.
And I actually wanted to and I'm one of these weird people. I do genuinely keep a diary, and I actually wanted to change the world of health and safety.
Nice.
And I still aspire to do that. And I know that I've probably been a little bit invisible, and I'm not out there on LinkedIn. And as I said to you, I found this sort of like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it.
Mm.
And I do a lot for girls. I'm a girl guiding leader. I run a brownie and a guide group. I do a lot of STEM work with, encouraging girls into the world of STEM because I think health and safety fits into that. I do a lot with women in construction. Yeah, I still see those biases. And I actually just think, if I can change one thing out of my entire career, if I can change it to actually say, I accept all those biases that potentially have come my way, hopefully that will change the world. And I do genuinely think, and that's probably me with my rose tinted glasses of the world, that I want it to change, and maybe that little bit of me is that's the changeable situation, because I do think, unfortunately, that bias does exist.
Yeah. I mean, Elisa, I thought so. You're very like sucking it in.
Taking it all in. Taking it
What?
all in. Um, yeah, first of all, yay construction. Okay. Like, yes, sister, meet your sister. Um, yeah, I I get the rose tinted glasses vibe off you, absolutely. And I'm all about like, yeah, make the world a better place where you can. And we definitely do need to improve in health and safety in terms of how many women are in the profession. Like you said, there's a lot of conversations happening at the moment in terms of different membership grades, whether it's IOSH or any of the rest of them. But yeah, it's like, is there a glass ceiling in safety? I suppose I had never really thought about it before, to be honest. I would just always kind of think, I just wouldn't have niched it down to safety. I would just say, yeah, there's a fucking glass ceiling for women, kind of regardless of where you are. But yeah, so I hadn't really thought about it in terms of our profession specifically. So it is an interesting, it's an interesting and probably timely topic, I would say.
I tell you where my brain's going. My brain's going and pushing and pulling, and based on all that lovely lived experience that we would quite like to burn if we could, about there's definitely a pay gap, like 100%. And I've literally left roles and been like, just do the minimum, guys. Like, I don't even need all the bells and whistles, do the minimum. Have left for a different role, and then they have brought somebody in that is male and paid them more than I was asking for. So it's completely possible. I think there's I see the pay issue everywhere.
Yeah.
And obviously managing the books of teams over the last 20 years, you look down when you land and you're like, oh, she is earning 20% less than him and they do the same role. So it's a labor of love to find that those differences and correct. And I would say I don't think my fight for equal pay is over. And also I always think it's interesting that it's not just equal pay, equal reward. So when, through pay, bonus, benefits, all those things, so equal reward, I think we've definitely got some way to go. And I think embedded in a lot of those choices are the head tilts and I'm sure that's enough for her, and all those things baked in, all those biases that you're talking about. So I think my brain immediately goes to how difficult it is to feel like you're winning in this profession from a woman's standpoint. And then to Elisa's point, when you put the question forward, I sat back in my chair and was like, oh, I think corporately about that glass ceiling. I think corporately about how I can punch the crotch of it as much as I can, or help others get to a point that they can punch the crotch of it. But then I started thinking about safety, and I thought, oh, some of the most brilliant leaders that I know at the moment are women. But also you look at the amount of women coming into our profession, as Elisa said, and it's poor. Typically every team that I take over, we're sitting at a 98% male. And then over a period of time, and I'm really proud to say, I don't ever do the recruiting, but I think one of the things that's really interesting is just having a really very good woman in this field in front of your 98% of men makes everyone go, oh, okay.
Oh, how interesting.
How
do that. Maybe another one can do it too.
Maybe we could have another lady in here. Come on, lady. And I think that's a lovely shift to see. But the bit you have to acknowledge is that's a shift that's required consistently. And when I talk to other women leaders, they're going into teams that are predominantly male and having to do the shift still. So there has to be a ceiling if the entry point is still quite blocked. So yeah, I mean, that's where my brain naturally goes. Thoughts?
I guess the one thing that and I'm going to pull that, my favorite, I've got a couple of favorite things. I've got sweeping statement. I'm
about to generalize and I'm going to enjoy it.
Yeah. But do women, and I'm putting myself out there, I'm being vulnerable, but I'd like to consider myself a strong female, but I also suffer from imposter syndrome. And that I've had a number of positions, especially in management positions, where I've been absolutely embraced, where my director said female, but then I've had other that almost touch on the do you know what you're doing? And but it might be the way that it's reflected, it might be the way that they communicate that actually gets into. And it's funny because, but you know, I know that there's the fellowship thing rumbling on, and I'm currently going through my fellowship again. You know, I was late to the party with that one, and a conversation came up about, you know, obviously why women are not doing it. And I thought, you know, there's been a few bits. One, there's the gender pay, which we just talked about. Secondly, there's the, actually, if you look at women who are in a leadership position who can influence, actually it's really, really quite, and maybe there's a touch of the imposter syndrome that you can't do that. I know the first time I actually stepped into a head of check perspective, I ended up managing a bunch of men who actually said to me after a period of time, we actually hated the fact that we were going to have a woman managers. We actually didn't know how it was going to like pan out. And actually, most of those men I still keep in contact with, and I've coached, mentored, and I'm not saying I hate, you know, I'm not a feminist, you know, and dare I say it, you know, the whole point of what the definition of feminist is about equal rights.
Yeah.
So, but it is, you know,
that's so interesting that you say that and then go, I'm not a feminist. It's like, why are you not on your own side? Can we not be on our own side?
I saw the head tilt from Elise.
I can't not be like, Andrea,
I know.
on now.
If we're having a discussion about wanting the same, not more, then it's okay to say. And do you know what? Some of the incredible men that we know, I would say, are fantastic feminists, and shamelessly so, and rightly that they are shamelessly so. So yeah.
Sorry, I cut across you. Carry on.
Carry on. So imposter syndrome, go.
No, and it is, and you know, I guess there's many occasions that I go, shit, I can't do this. I really, you know, but then I have to have almost like a pep talk with, again, my, you know, various colleagues, and then go, you can do this, you've got this, you are absolute. And then I cringe into my little sort of self when somebody goes, you're amazing. It's like, ugh, no.
Yeah.
Try telling Elisa she's amazing. Just see what happens.
Rotten.
Yeah. Literally, it's like, yeah, my inner child just generally goes, no, you're not, Andrea, shut up.
But we have been trained to be the meek. Oh no, me. Oh, we are meant to be trained to be told to be the dainty ones. And I think I saw this very interesting snippet of a podcast where they were saying the definition of being a good woman is to be good for everybody else. So a good sister, a good wife, a good mother. But the definition to be a good man is to provide, it's to work, it's to do the other things. And so we literally define ourselves as women by giving and being good for somebody else. So that's the bit inside us that we have to retrain, which is I'm allowed just to be great for me, actually. And I don't need to be somebody else's standard of mother or boss or leader or sister. I can just be me and hold my own boundaries. And I think that's labor for all of us, because even, and I would say Elise is probably one of the strongest women that I know in terms of those boundaries, and she will say what she thinks. I learn from her all the time about choose the discomfort of the conversation over sort of just sitting. I think Brené Brown said it recently, choose discomfort over resentment. So just sit there being bothered by it, be uncomfortable and have the chat. So I think a lot of that is we don't accept the compliments because we're not used to saying, and imagine if somebody said, Andrea, you're amazing, and you just went, oh, thanks.
I was literally just thinking about this.
Thanks. And I have genuinely tried this, and how funny. I've had the response, which is, all right.
Yeah.
Because I'm supposed to.
Hang on a fucking second. Don't get ahead of yourself. If you go, I'm actually really good at my job, you'd be like, oh, well, fucking all right. So I'm like, what? Do you want me to go around saying I'm shit? What do you want?
Like, I recently said in a one-to-one session about that self-confidence, and I said, I genuinely, for the bit of safety that I really love, which is that people-centric, focused, heart-driven, do the right thing by people. I said to somebody, I think I'm probably not the best, but I think I'm probably one of the best sort of that does this.
Oh, there you
And
go.
the man in front of me, who I have a lot of time respect for, just went, I don't know how you just said that.
No.
And I
Oh.
was like, but it wasn't because he didn't believe it. He just said, and here's the interesting thing about we're very good at discussing our vulnerability and being like, that's uncomfortable, we don't like it. Men are then taught, do not say you're vulnerable, do not talk, shush it. The response was, I can't believe you just said that. And I thought he was being cheeky. And I was like, and I doubled down, but I am. And then he was like, I could never have the guts to say that about myself. How do you get there? And I said, I'm not trying to be good for other people. I'm just by my own standard committed, and I know what I give, and I see the results, and that's my grade. I'm good, and can say it. But the level of people, if they say, Andrea, that is a stellar piece of work, like epic. Yeah, no. The ripple. And I don't even know if it's men and women, whether it's just the Brit in us that's supposed to be like, oh, me? Oh, like just say, yeah. Yeah. I literally said to somebody, I wore a Pride t-shirt the other day and I wore a pink blazer. I'm not gonna lie, it looked cracking, right? I had lipstick on. And I literally was just like, I look great today. Same person. How are you saying that about yourself? And I was like, because it looks great though.
Because I'm nailing it. Are you not? Are you not seeing what I'm seeing? What are
you're
you?
literally nailing it. Yeah, exactly right. So I think there's definitely some of that getting in our own way stuff. I think imposter syndrome, male or female, is absolutely everywhere. And I would say, and we've done a podcast on this before, I think anyone that doesn't feel imposter syndrome, don't hire. Because they're either one of two things: never sitting outside their comfort zone, so only operating in a safe space, or so unaware and arrogant that they would never be able to be coached, pushed, led, driven. So I would say those two things, right? I think imposter syndrome is totally normal.
Oh God, yeah. You just made me reflect, and so I always remember having a conversation with my dad. Now my dad has worked in he's well and truly retired, but civil engineering, and the industry that I actually work in. And I just remember one day talking about some of the challenges around, and it was like, in one of the comments he said to me, I went, Andrea, you've only decided to work in the worst male environmental sort of environment ever for women. He said, so he went, you're either stupid or you just want to prove a point. And I was like, okay, he's got a bit of a point here, but I was like, well, is it actually that? Is it very just because the industry that I work in, maybe, it is construction. I work in an industry where, we've got men that dig holes, and, I have to do the banter. I'm about it. I'm all about it. I'm very similar to you, Chris. I'm all about the person. I want to understand. Again, it's that why kid. Why are you doing that? How, talk to me. What's your feelings? All of that good stuff. But obviously what you get back was this like blank face. But yeah, I always remember Dad saying that to me. You've chosen a career in a really sort of difficult. And I was like, and it almost gets to the point that you become a bit stubborn to it and go, do it.
Yeah.
But even like definitely construction specifically, like you don't see women as directors or CEOs. You don't see women as head of procurement or quantity survey. Like they're still not there yet.
No.
So, and you'd see more in safety, but not in the general disciplines of like engineering, finance, any of that. They're the heads of HR. They're kind of getting to the heads of safety, and that's kind of, so there is definitely, I don't know if I would call it a glass ceiling or a glass fucking countertop. Like it's not that high. I just think like it's really, it's so definitely industry specific.
Yeah.
But then again, yeah, I think then when I think that corporate side, I think no matter what the sector, it's just, yeah.
Stuck. I think your fellowship, because I think I'm on the webinar. Is that the bit that you've seen? Yeah. The conversation around women in that, and actually
So sorry, before you go any further, for anybody who doesn't know what this webinar is or what it's about.
Oh yes, I should literally, Heather Beach will kick my butt because I don't know the time, the date, but it is a webinar, so you can look. Say that again, Andrea.
24th of July.
24th of July. Totally knew that. No editing. So yeah, 24th of July. And Heather Beach is facilitating a discussion between myself, Stuart Hughes, who is the current president of IOSH. I think Anna Keen's involved, and there is another lovely lady involved, and I can't remember her name. But basically, you can look it up on LinkedIn and register and come for the chat. And it's essentially come from myself and Elisa doing a podcast a little while ago where I called out at the end the institution, it shouldn't just be on us all to do this labor. Institutions can lean in. And I can't remember the context, Elisa. I don't even know what the discussion was about. Do you?
I can't, but there was, oh, do you know, I think it might have been on the back of something we were discussing around the conference we were at, representation of women, and then it went down to, is it 1% of fellows are women or 1% of members are women in IOSH specifically, I think. Something like that.
So yeah, well, I think it's 1%. It's moved. So when I became a fellow, and this is where the chat happened, when I became a fellow, I was informed that I was part of the 1% of the fellows that were women. And when I heard that stat, it's actually the only reason that I engaged and became a fellow, because I just thought I've got to move that dial. I've got to be part of moving that
so
dial.
Funny that my response would be the fucking opposite of like, they can go fuck themselves. They are not having me as a fellow. What even is a fellow? Fellow?
So we basically called IOSH out, and Stuart has basically just said, I would like to be part of this change. Now, the stats have moved on. It is now 20% of the fellows are women, but with an 80%, obviously, of fellows of IOSH being men. Stuart wants to help move that dial, start the conversation, which is, I think, solid. But it started a conversation offline with me and Elisa, and Elisa's response to me, and it was, I could feel your energy. It was like, why do you not talk about this loudly outside? It's so engaging. Because I went on the biggest rant.
Well, we were having, like, I think it started with, we were having a disagreement over a voice note.
Yeah.
And it was, again, lean into this conversation. Like, you messaged me going like, oh, no, fellows, and Stuart and IOSH. And I was like, you were so hyped. And I was like, I could not give less of a fuck about IOSH. Like, I really, it's not my bag, but it's totally. And then we were back and forth. And then you sent me like a 7-minute voice note. And I was like, dude, we should like just upload this as a little podcast. That it was, I was like, I mean, I'm still not on board, but I'm engaged.
Yeah. And now I want to be part of this discussion. And it essentially boiled down to, Andrea, the rant I went on was, it starts with like, I refuse for there to be any spaces where I can see 1% is women, where I have the ability, power, and interest to be able to buck that. So I will always get in that dirty pond and wade through it. But also the process itself, which is something that we're going to be discussing. Part of that, as you will know, because you're going through it now, part of the syllabus is about how you give the extra, how you volunteer, how you go to the meeting, how you go to branch, how you get. And the rant that I then went on for the additional 6.5 minutes was, as a senior leader with a massive job, a single mum that cannot leave, and I call it single mum prison, right? Once Boo goes to bed at 7, I'm not going anywhere. My ability to tick that box is very limited. And then you add on, I went further down the rant, if 50% of marriages end in divorce, and 80% of the time, and I'm guesstimating there, but from what I can see in the general domain, 80% or more of the time, the children end up with mum, then we are always on a hiding to nothing where curriculums and criterias are asking for additional presence, time, networking, the cigar lounge style approval of our participation. And it absolutely is designed for people that have freedom of movement way back when it was like mum is at home doing
fellows can trot around.
Can trot around and do the things. And I was lucky enough to be asked to co-opt onto council, IOSH council, to help Louise. So I ticked the box. Without that, I literally wouldn't have been able to engage with the fellowship because I was a single mum. So there is work to do, and not just for, you know, if we're really, really going to present equal opportunity, we really must understand the demographic of the country. We must understand where marriages break down, where children end up, and where the typical high levels of domestic labour land. And it is, even in homes that are together maritally, we know the research around domestic labour sitting on women. How are we able to participate in an even way? So I think that's the discussion for me. Again, I don't know if that sort of starts to create that glass ceiling professionally, which is, can you be a fellow, which is the highest ranking, you know, level of membership to the biggest safety organization in the world, only if you have freedom of movement. You know, it's tough.
Yeah. I guess, you know, just an example for me, which I think posed something, is that I don't have children, but again, you know, I run my own house. I, you know, have all of those, what would I call the typical pink jobs. You know, I know that, you know, they do happen. These things happen. But in return, I still have things that I would much rather do. Like, for example, you know, like I said earlier, I've been a member of Girl Guiding. I actually prefer doing things which is fun, camping, you know, doing things outside, all of that kind of stuff. But I do get that, you know, it's like where, you know, you've got all of that. But then when I've gone for potential promotions, which is where the conversation been, oh, I didn't know that about you. You haven't frigging asked me, you know, so actually I've just bypassed you because I'm going to, you know, I'm going to like promote this bloke because he's a bloke. But actually, if you had that conversation, you know, just because, you know, that I'm a female and potentially, you know, that I don't have children, but I do other stuff, I haven't got the opportunity. Or, oh, I didn't presume. Oh, I presumed you couldn't do that. You didn't talk to me. And it's like, and I think that's some of the things that, you know, it's just, and I don't know whether it is, again, you know, I might be just putting out there that it's just a female thing, or it's like, do you actually, it's about getting to know somebody and going, actually, what they're capable of.
Yeah, I think we are underestimated. And do you know what's happening in my brain? The comment I'm going to make is we're underestimated consistently. We are undervalued consistently, which means the minute, and definitely the one thing I've learned about the world is, when you are, this is through Anna Keane coaching years ago, she was like, decisions around really senior roles, the discussions around those people happen in rooms before the advert's out. Sometimes the advert doesn't even go out. So people sit back and they say, who is it? And who is the influencer? And what do we need? What do we change? Oh my God, I've lost my train of thought. I don't even know where I was going there. We'll abandon it. It's fine.
Is it about kind of like underestimating, or do you actually not realize that you're being
underestimated?
Your name is being spoken in rooms that you probably don't even realize.
Yeah, I don't even know. Can't remember. You said you had brain fog, Andrea. Welcome to the club, my friend. But yeah, maybe it's just a statement in itself, which is, I think I was getting to the point of, so by the time you have those discussions around glass ceilings, if we're undervaluing ourselves and people are undervaluing us, and we're underestimating the women in our organizations, we're not going to be part of those conversations. So therefore, for me, and this comes back to that fellow piece, I absolutely require that next to my name to create some sort of even playing field. I need to be visible and heard, and I need to be creating space for myself to allow a reputation and credibility to form.
I will just caveat though, and we've spoke about this before. Oh, when you get to that certain level, you need the letters by your name. I do think that's very UK specific. That's not so much the case here. Like, and I know it's like, oh, IOSH are global kind of, but not really. Like, it's UK specific. There's like, even last year when I was going for roles and I'm like interviewing for like Europe wide roles, all that stuff wasn't even mentioned, not once.
Yeah.
Like, it's so it just amazes me the stronghold it has over there of like people are like IOSH is such a big deal. But here, definitely here and on the continent, it's definitely less so, which to me is
I wonder whether it's safety specific. I think we do the same, you know, we do the same with engineering, we do it in fire specifically. Like, we are a fan of the Postnominals, and we do it everywhere, right? In so many fields. But
yeah, I mean, I was really late to the party. Like I say, you know, when I first started in safety, I just bumbled along. You know, I'd started off doing sort of like an apprentice. I was a cosh administrator. I love that, by the way, because I had to deal with like a major fire because some agent decided to put a flammable chemical into the warehouse and it went up
Bob.
in yeah, amazing. I was 19. I was like, oh, what the fuck's just happened there? Anyway, but you know, so I was really, really late. I didn't actually do my chartership and I could have got grandfather rights. I didn't have to, I had to jump through hoops. I had to do my diploma. And then it was like, oh, I've got chartership. And then I sort of bumbled along. And then I actually got to same as you, Crystal. It was like, I've actually started to see the higher level I've got, that now I'm actually playing in this playing field of like men and I'm better than you. And I'm not saying, and that's sort of again sweeping statement as usual, because I've dealt with some really lovely men, but and some really supportive bosses. But it just got to that point. I was like, hang on, I feel like I need to like prove a point. And it's just, and it's actually quite sad that we do have to do that. And maybe it is just UK though. But yeah, I never ever used to put any of my letters because I just think, oh, you're such a dick, really, to have all those.
But I find it interesting though that you're saying, oh, I'm late to the party, but like now you're seeing people in their 20s going for fellowship, and you're like, how is, but also how is that? And not that, not to be ageist or say that you should have a certain tenure, but at the same time, you kind of should have a certain tenure. Like there should be something. Whereas I know I've heard a lot of commentary around even chartership now that it's very much like, yeah, just and move through, and next thing you can go straight into fellowship. And it's like, what should it be?
do you know, it's
Harder in terms of the voluntary stuff, but should it be harder in terms of the competency stuff? And then I hear other people going, oh, the fellowship's not really about actual competency, though. It's about, yeah, how much time you give. I'm like, this is wild to me.
I found so I failed the first part of the diploma when I first did it. It was my fault for trying to get married, buy a house, and do a diploma all at once. And I failed it at one point. So I was like, right, I'll come back to that later. And I remember then I was 6 months behind my class because then I passed later. And by the time I'd resat the first exam and passed it, some of the guys were pretty significantly a significant way through the chartership thing. I purposefully waited 5 years. And I think that's because what it means to me, I'm very proud to say I've been reviewed by a panel of my peers. And I use that all the time when somebody says to me that is maybe a new boss that is maybe it's legal or board level and they don't get what IOSH is or what chartership is. I'm super proud to say that I was reviewed by a panel of my peers and given chartership. And yeah, I think there should be years. I mean, you have to wait a certain amount of years between chartership and fellowship.
Yeah, but and it should be, there should be a level of desirable difficulty in getting it. So you have that sense of achievement, that sense of, you know, like I've done this, and you can stand over it. You know yourself that like, yeah, this is legit and genuine.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, come on.
Sorry, I was gonna, you know, you know, when I reached out to you guys, and you know and I think you know, being open, nervousness of actually talking, but I actually, you know, I have so many stories to tell, and I think and I think I've got some hilarious stories to tell, and I almost tell them to myself some of the things, and you know, there's some that are really random. Like, well, I'll give you for one, which is quite a funny one. Having to pick a like operative up from a brothel. It's like, and being asked, you know, it's like, oh, are you his mum? No, I'm a health and safety manager. It's like, all right, do you want to take him? But that I got so many random conversations, so stories.
Andrew, you should start a podcast.
Yeah, no,
Podcast. It's called
no,
Andrea Simon Stories. This is it. Do it.
on your bonfire, ladies. Sorry, but
No, you should. You should absolutely 15-minute snippets for
yeah.
little commutes and
Yeah.
tell the stories. I would 100% listen
I
to
would
it.
definitely listen to that.
Do it.
But you know, so I just realized all of a sudden it was like, you know, for me, and it was that part of that fellowship journey, but also realizing some of the things that have happened in the last, you know, couple of years for me. And I was like, man, you know, and actually, you know, when I said to you earlier, you just like do the little, oh, I'm not going to talk about it because I'm really, but actually, it's like, you know, yeah, I have stories. I have health and safety stories that people would like go, what the absolute fuck? What happened there? And it's like, well, you know, and storytelling, funny situation with them, you know, I know that we can expand the ever so golden truth, but you know, for a storybook, I have it's, and I just think, you know, where do you go with this? It's like, how do you put that into the fellowship and to say to people, I am not just qualified, I've got all of this experience that you've actually said, oh, I didn't realize, so I'm going to choose this man instead. And yeah.
Well, I think that, I mean, that goes back to, I think it's how you build, and it's a nice point to start bringing us to that point. I think you are a representation of probably so many women, Andrea, which are saying, I have 30 years plus experience. I am really good at my job. I'm passionate, I'm dedicated, I'm diligent, I'm articulate, and there is no reason that I shouldn't be considered a complete equal to anybody in a CV pile. I think the challenge is 100% how you take your space, how you start to push yourself. And one of them would be, you know, is it applying for those jobs, putting yourself out there, making sure that you're really being, you know, blowing yourself up in your CV, like absolutely call out that credibility and that experience. Why would you not start a podcast? Anybody listening to this right now with those stories, why would you not start a podcast and do 15-minute stories for people to build it, share it? And I think it goes right back to the beginning of this, where we said about every time we try and compliment each other, if we can't accept a compliment from women that we respect, what the hell hope have we got, right? Really starting to believe in our own credibility. If we cannot, you know, Elisa, I know how much you respect me and I respect you. If we can't receive compliments from each other,
it's actually mind blowing. It's just like, oh, I so respect your opinion, except when you say something nice about
me.
Other than that, Crystal, opinions solid as a rock, except that makes literally no sense.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and maybe this is the start, right? Maybe this is the start is when we give the compliment, see a woman, see her nailing it, give the compliment. And ladies, when you hear it, we can just say thank you.
Receive
and
it.
if you silently retch later, do so, right? But we need to practice not making ourselves smaller if our actual end game is to take space. It's counterintuitive.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah.
Amazing. What are your wrap thoughts then, Andrea, after our chat? How are you feeling about it all?
Yeah, I guess, you know, great, you know, for me, the conversation, are we going to change? Am I going to change the world? I will continue to be who I am. I will continue to, you know, do my thing for the girls and the boys, and you know, and try and push them into what I think is an amazing career. I love my job. You know, it doesn't matter. And I think we've talked about this in the past. You know, you have, sorry, you, not me. I've talked with my people in that people move jobs because of the people that manage, not because they paid the job. My job is just a dream. Yeah, I've got the ups and downs, and I will continue to coach, mentor, push people into hopefully does really good daft stories that I've got hundreds of, like picking young boys up from a brothel, another conversation, but and actually smile about it and go, oh, wow, that was the weirdest day of my life, you know. So, but and actually, it is a, you know, it's a great, you know, opportunity, and hopefully, we can pave the way for the next 16-year-old who comes in, and when they've done 36 years, or you know, that they're actually a CEO and actually completely bossing it in civil engineering and construction, and telling those guys, no, you do it, you know, you guys are, you know, doing it the way that you should be doing it. Anyway, yeah.
Love that. Nice wrap, Andrea. Elisa.
Yeah, it just reminds me of that thing of, it's just one conversation at a time. Whether you're trying to improve the world, whether you're trying to improve the profession, whether it's literally your own department or the business that you're in, it's one conversation at a time. And hopefully this conversation, somebody will take something out of this as well. And as always, when this topic comes up, we always make a shout out to our allies who are out there, the men who are out there fighting the good fight. And I'm still calling out. Please continue to do so, and tell your mates. Tell your mates, hire and promote more women. And yeah, that's the call out.
Amazing. Well, I think what a wicked place to leave it. Great topic, Andrea. Thank you for bringing it to the speak seat. It's been an absolute pleasure. And thank you to everybody that has listened this week. Join us in a couple of weeks where we'll be speaking about something else. Take care.
Cheers. See ya.